Okay, guys, round two, because we're having audio issues. If you watched my video last week, you would hear there was audio issues that I couldn't clean up, but we saw solving it today. Um, okay, so I wasn't sure whether I was going to post a video this week or not, but I'm going to get straight into it because I think this is an important topic that very rarely gets spoken about, and it's something that me and Claudia, who is back by the way, say hi.
Hi, everybody.
Have been talking about and dealing with in our personal capacities in different ways. I've spent a couple of days, a little less time on social media, and I may not post as much for the next couple of months, and it's intentional because I'm trying to understand something about myself that I never really came down to, and I needed this quiet time to recognize that. Um, so in the last couple of weeks, there's been a lot of talk around intimacy. I've been watching so many videos that just keep coming up around intimacy, intimacy with God, intimacy with the people in your life, and what that actually means for you. And essentially, when we talk about intimacy, it's a way of seeing someone, right? So you figure out who they are in their entirety, their existence, what they believe, what they think, how they move, what their dreams are. All of that thing encompasses the person. But for you to be able to actually see that person and who they are and what it is they're meant to accomplish in this life, you actually have to see them. So you see through all of the superficial things, like the way they look and the way they dress and the conversations they have, but you sit and actually get to know them on an emotional or even spiritual level. And this has been an interesting topic to me because I've been listening like to John Bevere with Tim's interview, and I mean, something I didn't buy it. Someone bought the book for me, The Awe of God, and it actually teaching us how to have talking so fast, how to have an intimate relationship with God based on how we honor, revere, and respect Him, essentially. And sometimes it's difficult to have a relationship with people in authority if we don't understand what respect is. But also, when you haven't had an intimate relationship with someone in that capacity, you really don't learn a lot of things. So, I was having a conversation with someone 2 days ago with regards to me learning discipline in an authority perspective, from an authoritarian perspective. I've always had the issue of being told that I'm disrespectful over and over and over again, from the way that I approach people, from the way that I speak to people who are older than me or in higher positions than me. But my issue has always been I didn't understand what respect looked like because I wasn't raised in a situation necessarily where respect was given to me as a, what is the word? Was taught to me as something valuable. Um, I was taught that I will discipline you in ways that harm you and not teach you respect through refining disciplinary methods. And I put it that way because the Bible is actually very different and God is very different in the sense of how He disciplines us. He disciplines us through refining. He teaches us lessons through experience. He teaches us lessons through not necessarily beating you half to death and then being like, yeah, figure it out. This is what you did, so you deserve this. He actually teaches you how this lesson is put you through, or this struggle is put you through, is going to teach you something valuable about yourself. Okay, is it still there? It's fine. We'll take it off, guys. We're having audio issues, but it's okay. So, the biggest thing I think that let me move this. I think the biggest thing that comes to mind for me about this is that many of us don't have these intimate relationships, and these relationships are important because it's difficult to have intimate relationship with God if we don't understand an intimate relationship with a Godhead, someone who's been placed above you as the person who is responsible above you, right? Like for instance, our fathers are the person who is the most representative of God. So if your father was mean and harmful to you, your automatic response mechanism is that God must be the same one. He the same way. He's going to teach me things in a very mean and ugly way. So I'd rather not have a relationship with someone who treats me like that, because if he treats me like that, it must mean he doesn't see me. right? Leave it. It'll sort itself out. Because I want you here. So take it out. Anyway, so um, this the relationship between intimacy and being seen, I think, work in tandem with one another. It's very difficult to feel valued as a person if someone in your friendship or your relationship doesn't see you. And that brings me down to why I've decided just to take a break from social media, but also it's made me really think about my life in its entirety. So, I mean, the people who know me for a very long time and have followed me for a very long time have seen me do certain things. I always go with where the wind leads me, right? So I'm just like, I get passionate about something, I'll do it and I'll continue to do it. I won't stop, but there are times when I have to pivot. And I've pivoted a few times. Um, but it's always been in the space where there was a camera involved. I was speaking somewhere, I was doing something that made people see me. And last night it hit me that one of the reasons I may continually put myself in these positions is more than just being seen by people, but um, it's the recognition for my existence, not for what I can do, not for what I think, not for what I've read and learned, but the recognition for my actual existence um, is lacking. And I've known this, and I think a lot of us know this about ourselves, but we're always looking for other ways to fill that gap. And I had to bring myself to the question, like, why every time I get excited when I want to share something, when something not I don't not want to share, when something comes up to me, like, so I'll get these inspirational quotes that jump in my spirit, and then I get excited and I want to share it with everyone. I was asking myself the question, why do I continually feel like I need to be sharing things over and over and over again? And it was for this specific reason. There are some things that we are told, that God tells us, that people tell us, that we are meant to keep to ourselves. Now, I've always thought to the badge of, I don't like secrets. I do not like secrets. I don't do secrets. I have no kinship to secrets whatsoever. I think they make you um, uh, inauthentic, right? But at the same time, I don't have to share everything with everyone. And a couple of months ago, I was talking about the difference between oversharing and vulnerability. And there are two fundamental differences between the two. Oversharing is sharing everything so that people think you are being open with them at all times. But oversharing is a cover for vulnerability because you're only vulnerable with people you feel safe with, right? So this is where the relationship between intimacy and intimacy, vulnerability, and being seen, they exist in the same triangle. You can't be seen by someone you can't feel safe and vulnerable with. And you need to be intimate with that person in order for that to happen. It's the same like our relationship with God. You have to be intimate with Him to feel vulnerable and safe enough for Him to be able to see you. That's why the Bible says the relationship that we have with God is based on us. How intimate we decide to be with Him, if we draw closer to Him, He'll draw closer to us. All of that weighs on us and how we move, right? But this is in every relationship. I mean, I feel like that model is a model that we should have with everyone. If I draw closer to you intimately, um, then there becomes a space where I feel safe, and that way you see me, vice versa. But what's been interesting, okay, I hate using the word interesting. I notice I say that a lot, so just excuse me. But the thing I feel like most people, I think this is the entire planet, we do things out of a place of not being seen. Our personhood is not acknowledged in the spaces that are most important. And especially as children, if our personhood is not acknowledged, we tend to try and find other things to latch onto. This is why you find people who live promiscuously, who choose other things in life, who choose partying every weekend or running away. I actually had a conversation with a boy last night who was saying to me he was running away from his vulnerability from something that had happened a couple of years ago. And he only now, in hindsight, can see that every decision he made was running away from it because vulnerability felt unsafe for him because he doesn't have an intimate connection or relationship with anyone that allows him to become vulnerable enough to allow himself to be seen. And it broke my heart because it made me actually also see that most of us do this. So when we are in spaces where we have to be alone for long periods of time, how hard is it to sit with yourself for more than a week or 2 weeks and just be alone without having anything that you must do, without having anywhere where you must go? How hard is it to do that? Because even an intimate relationship with ourselves is difficult to do. We're so used to pushing back on intimacy that the importance of vulnerability is falling away altogether. I can very honestly say I'm not the most vulnerable person. I may seem vulnerable because y'all hear all my business, but that's not me being vulnerable at all. And for the life of me, very few people will see me being vulnerable, except today. Today, I wanted to share that this is an issue that I deal with. My biggest issue all my life has been not being seen. When I was young, I felt invisible. And when I opened my mouth, I felt invisible. And then I became loud and noisy because it felt like it was the only way to get the people who needed to see me's attention. But then that didn't work. So I did the only thing that a child knows how to do. If you're going to give me attention for bad behavior, then I'm going to do that. Attention is attention at the end of the day. And most people don't calculate it like that. To them, they're like, this child is just naughty and they are terrible. When a child is acting out, it's because there's something that they're not getting. Most of the time, it's their personhood is completely being ignored. What I find in like South African society specifically, we don't understand what being seen means, especially for children. Feeding, clothing, taking the child to school, and all of that is your responsibility. Seeing them is actually how you parent. So I'm talking about understanding how they think, why they think the way they do, what the ideas of the world are, what they value most, what's most important to them, what love means to them, what their love language is. All of those things is seeing someone for who they are, their intrinsic value is what you are seeing. That is what every person on the planet, not once, needs. And when me and you were talking about this earlier, it dawned on me that people who end up, so in my world, there's this two-sided balance. There's people, most people have been traumatized, but you end up with two sides of the spectrum. You find super empathetic people and then you find super narcissistic people. Both of them come from the same family system. Both of them lack exactly the same thing, being seen. They are neglected. Their core foundationary personhood is neglected. I don't know yet what the defining moment is for which direction they go in, but at the core of it, the reason they are attracted to one another is because their core personhood has been neglected in childhood. This manifests itself in adulthood. And you'd think because empathetic people are introspective and we tend to sit and we take apart our lives and think about ourselves and how we need to grow, where we need to heal, all of those things, that we would be the more balanced kind, but we aren't. Because we are operating from that same lack of not being seen. We overextend ourselves and our boundaries are down because we're hoping the people who come into our circles are the ones who are going to fill the gap and see us. The most important thing I think that we need to recognize in this area is that the only people that actually need to see us is ourselves and God. And God already sees us. Look, if someone was willing to go out of their way to literally create us from a little morsel of nothing to who we are today, they have seen us from inception. The Bible does say, right? That God knows everything. He gave you everything that you have. He knew you before you were in your mother's womb. knew you. He saw you before you were even made, before you were even created. I mean, we live in a world where we want people who we can touch and feel and are able to see us, but they can't create us. Imagine ignoring the one person who sees us from inception, from before we were even a thought in the minds of our parents, right? So I think, like I've said a lot of times, I feel like some of these things that I talk about need to be family conversations we have around the table. But the question I have for myself and for many people is there a point where we're going to come, are we going to get to a point ever in this lifetime? And I mean, my lifetime is probably another, what, 60 years, please God. But in this lifetime where we are going to reckon with the fact that we are replaying the same things we grew up in. The neglect that we experienced and not being seen, we are replaying in our own lives by neglecting ourselves and by neglecting the only person who actually truly sees us, who is God. That is, I said to you this last night, there was an experience I had a couple of weeks ago when someone said to me, God has seen the hell that you've been through, hell and back. He sees you. And immediately, for the first time in my life, it felt like there was an empty seat in me that was not being filled. Like someone sat in that seat for the first time. And it felt like the validation I didn't even know I needed. Because no one has validated any of my experiences in the last 2 years. Um, and I mean, even my experiences prior to that, it hasn't been validated. But to directly come from God saying, I am validating your experiences. I see you. I see what you've been through. I know how hard this has been. And I said this before, I really didn't need validation from anybody else. The other thing I wanted to also talk about with regards to this is the biggest thing that came up to me, and I said this on my social media, was that every time I was spending time on Instagram and on TikTok, I was getting so overwhelmed with the fact that it seemed like I already had this wound of feeling invisible. I experienced it throughout my entire marriage. My personhood was never acknowledged. Um, and prior to that, I felt that quite extensively. But what was happening now was I'd gone through all of this stuff, and I'm going on social media, and everybody is doing some sort of okay. And in the back of my head, I'm just like, okay, God, I am truly serving you with everything I have, but I don't even have a 5 rand. Like, I cannot secure anything in my life right now. I can't say anything to my kids about helping with anything. And it's killing me. And I know this is like the enemy uses stuff like this to try and get us off the path, but I've already committed myself. Like, I'm here. I'm not going anywhere else. It doesn't now matter whatever happens. I mean, I've already been in the worst possible place. But the thing that killed me was it highlighted to me so loudly how invisible I actually was. When I was telling you about this last night, that I did a GoFundMe last year to try and save me and my kids and get us in our home, at least if it was like a little room for 6 months. And that page almost reached nobody. I mean, compared to, I saw a GoFundMe page yesterday of someone who made 100,000 rand in 2 days. I didn't even make 5K. And I had mine up for 6 months. And I know it sounds like I'm feeling sorry for myself. And I think this is the other thing I need to stop processing like this is it's not feeling sorry for myself, is acknowledging that every attempt that I have made for other people to see me, to see what it is I was going through, to seeing the losses that I was experiencing, to see it's not just losses, I literally lost my entire life, that I was still invisible. I don't think there's anything harder than already feeling invisible from the people in your bloodline, from the people you are relationally connected to, but then also the greater society completely seeing right through you. And this is not me walking away from people who have supported me and all of that. But I feel like there's sometimes God puts us in such dire circumstances that the only person you can come to is Him, because He's the only person who truly sees you. And that's a safety I think that I never thought I'd ever experience, but it hurts. It hurts so much because I really, a friend of mine, when he saw my GoFundMe page, he was like, "This is such a brilliant idea. Oh my word, I'm so glad. Like I've seen this thing, and I think it's gonna do well and whatever, so that you can, get an apartment or whatever for you and your kids." And it motivated me that I had done the right thing. But to be honest, I felt like crap. I felt like crap. I swore to myself I wasn't gonna cry on this. I felt like crap because I didn't understand why I had to go that extent to find help. Why what was wrong with me that didn't afford me the level of help or the level of being seen where I could retain at least my family? Is it because I sinned? Is it because I did something wrong? Like, my question a lot of the time for this with God was like, what did I do? Like, was I so bad that I deserved all of the stuff? Just tell me what it is I did and I'll fix it. And that question came up a lot. And I mean, since he validated me, I haven't asked him that so much. But my question has always been, was there a reason you wanted me to recognize that you were the only one who sees me? And that nobody actually can truly see me. And you're the only one who can literally do whatever it is you need to do for my next move. That there was no way you would put me in a position that I could lean on anybody. Because I have had nobody that I can rely on. And this message is not just for me. I know there's so many other people who are in a situation where literally every possible opportunity, the doors have closed. Every person has turned their back. And you wonder to yourself, what did I do to deserve to be left out here in the cold, facing all of this by myself? And it's harder when you're getting SMSs from Standard Bank saying, well, your account is 5,000 Rand in arrears. I'm just like, okay, Standard Bank, you got to deal with yourself. But, you know, so the main reason I'm doing this video is because I had to contend with myself over whether I was doing these YouTube videos because God wanted me to or because I was looking for another way to be seen. And to be honest with you, I really had to sit with it last night and this morning, that there are people that I really, really hope can be helped from these videos. I'm not gonna lie, I do wish that a miracle will happen, you know, that I can find a home and that, like, going back to the shelter is not literally on my doorstep, and that I can see my kids. Obviously I'm human. I'm sitting every day wishing and hoping that at any moment something dramatic will happen that will change my life and allow me to breathe. But that's not going to change the fact that there's so many more people dealing with this than we want to recognize. And it also made me sit to the fact that, have I ever been the kind of person who has ignored someone's personhood, leaving them out in the cold? I would like to think I wasn't, but I would never know. You know? Have I shown God through the way that I behave with other people? Have I shown who God actually is? And that's another thing that it's brought to my attention. So essentially, this message is about, if you're in a situation right now where you're feeling like you're not being seen and you didn't realize all the things that you were doing was in an attempt to have someone see you for who you actually are, that there is one person who sees you and saw you before you were even created. But at the same time, sorry, no, it's fine. Hi, how was work? But at the same time, if you don't allow yourself to see yourself, there's nothing you can do um, that's going to come from a place of wholesome security and safety, because you're going to be looking for that outside of yourself wherever you go. Um, and sometimes it takes a long time to get there, but I'm hoping sooner rather than later. Um, because you can really waste a lot of years trying to fill that seat when only God can fill that seat. Um, and understanding that maybe most of what it is you've experienced and you've done has been in an attempt for someone else to see you. So yeah, this didn't go in the way that I was expecting, but that is what it is. So with all of that, I hope that we can have a conversation about this, like really understanding that even as parents, our job is to be able to find ways to see our children for who they are so that they don't go off of the path. Um, and to see the people that are around us, to truly see them, to make an attempt to actually make them feel valued. And also teaching ourselves that we don't have to overextend ourselves to feel valued, or to constantly be posting and putting ourselves out there because there's a lack in the area of validation for ourselves, that we cannot self validate, and we don't let God and the Word of God validate us, because He validates us so many times in there. Yeah, so I think that's it. Claudia didn't say anything. But we're both contending with this. I'm only emotional about it because it's a deep thing, and I think it's a deep wound for many people. We just we run away from it because it means we have to actually address the wound. But at what point are we going to stop bleeding on other people? That's our responsibility. So have a good one.
Before, it was only 26 minutes.
It's fine.
Okay. Bye, guys.